Hey everyone, welcome to the second module of the Pandas tutorial. In the first module, we discussed about how to get started with Pandas, the series, data frame, creating data frame, indexing them, and the difference between ilog and log. In this module, we are going to talk about various functionalities which are applied at the attribute level in the data frame. Some of which include sum, describe, count, mean, max, nlargest, nsmallest, datetime, timedelta. I'm Saurav Agarwal. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We said first import the pandas library. Import pandas as PD. PD is the alias that we are using for pandas. We will then import a file here, train.csv. We have already added or uploaded this file to our repository here. Okay. Now we are loading this CSV file. We know that this data frame contains 2000 rows and 21 columns. All the columns, as you can see, data.info provides you the metadata about the various attributes or columns in the data frame. Okay. Now, as we know, as we can see here, that all the attributes that we have are numeric types. Int 64, float 64, all are numeric types. However, upon deep diving and understanding, we can find that attributes such as 4G, 3G, dual SIM, though they are numeric types, but they are actually categorical values denoting whether the presence or absence of these particular attributes. For example, if dual SIM is 1, it denotes that the mobile phone that we are talking of is a dual SIM mobile phone. If it is 0, then it does not have dual SIM functionality. Okay. So what we will do is we'll convert some of these numeric types which are actually categorical into object types. Why we are doing that? We'll understand it in some time. Actually, we want to understand the functionality based on the categorical data. That is why we are converting some of these into categorical or object types. Okay. Describe is used to describe the overall summary of the data frame. It gives you information such as sum, count, mean, standard deviation, 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile. Okay. Here we are just taking 4 attributes of the entire data frame that we have. Here we had 21 attributes, but we are considering 4 of them to keep things simpler and help us understand better. Okay, so battery power, int memory, 4G, dual SIM. As we see that we have already converted the 3 of our attributes such as 3G, 4G and dual SIM into object types. Now, when we call the describe attribute here, we will see that the describe attribute only gives us the detail for the 2 attributes, battery power and int memory. What describe does by default is it will display the information or summarize information for numeric types only. However, in order to include other types or include only object type, we can do something as, see, we had the same 4 attributes here. We called the describe method. We said include equal to object. Now this would include only the object types which are 4G and 3G in our case, and it will display information such as count, unique, the number of unique values, top, which is the value which is having the highest frequency, and the frequency of the topmost value. We see 1 in 4G is 1043, 1 in 3G is 1523. Okay, hope this makes clear. However, if we want to display all the types of information about all the attributes or all types of attributes that we have, what we will do is we will simply say that we want to include all, and the way to do this is we are including here 3G dot describe include equal to all. Okay, there is another attribute associated with this, uh, another parameter that we can set, that is exclude, which helps us to decide which parameter or which attributes to exclude from our description. Okay, now as you can see, battery power and int memory were numeric types, hence they did not have the count for unique, top and frequency, whereas 4G and 3G being object types do not have the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, percentiles. Okay, hope this makes sense. Next, if we want to just have the summary with respect to a particular functionality, say what we want to only see the sum, then we can do the numeric type dot sum. If you do this on object type, say for example data 4g dot sum, let us see what happens. Okay, so what it is doing is it is giving the count of the values here again. Okay, it is considering it as the numeric type when computing sum. Okay, see, it is computing the sum as 1043, which is the total number of ones we had. So it internally does the change there. Okay, similarly you can print median, me, mean, maximum, all the different computations or all the different summary values that you want to see. Okay, next we will see the axis. Okay, what we understand by axis is axis defines the dimension of any data frame or any object, we can say. In a data frame, if I do, let me print the shape of this data frame, data dot shape. So it will return two values because data frames are two-dimensional. The first value or the index 0 denotes the number of rows, and the first index 1 denotes the number of columns. So the axis 0 would denote rows and axis 1 would denote columns. If I say axis equal to 0, it will take any description along the rows. Okay, say for example here I take axis equal to 1. I have two attributes, battery power, int memory. Now I take sum and axis is 1. What is happening is along each of the column, it is computing the sum of the two columns, and for each row you have the sum for the you have the value corresponding to the sum of both the columns. However, if we change this to axis 0, which is the default value, we will have the sum across each column. So the across, you can say across axis 0, all the rows would be summed up. If we say axis is 1, all the columns would be summed up. Okay, hope this makes sense now. Next, cum sum. Cum sum gives us cumulative sum. If you print the first few rows, let me print the first few rows to make it clear. Head gives us the first 5 rows by default. We can also have tail, which gives the last 5 rows. Okay, so the first value is 842, second is 1021. Now what cumsum is does, it takes the first row as it is 842. The second one will have the summation of these first two, 1021 plus 842, which is, you see, 1863. The third row will have the summation of all three. The fourth will have the summation of all four. This is how cumsum takes place. Okay, hope this is making sense. Hope you're understanding some of these statistical measures that we have here, and these are very powerful when we go for exploratory data analysis, when we try to find out the summary of the data that we have. Now we will see is NA, drop NA, fill NA. What these do is they deal with null values or missing values. Is NA checks whether any value is missing or null. If you do pd.isNA data, it will have an element wise check for each of the values in the data frame, whether it is a null value or not. For our summarization, what we do is we apply another method on top of it, which is the any. Any checks whether any value across the row or across the series or across the entire data frame is null or not. What we will do is we will specify here axis 0. So what axis 0 was? Across the, across the rows, or for each of the values in the particular column. For the entire set of column, it will check whether it is null or not. It returns false, which means we do not have any null value. Okay, now the similar thing, if we give axis is 1, then it would check for each of the values across the row. Okay, making sense there. Next, drop NA. Drop NA is a similar method. What it does is it will drop any missing value or drop any column which is having missing value, or any row which is having missing value based on the condition provided. Okay. let's see how it goes. Since we don't have any null values here, so we won't have any row dropped as such. pd dot drop na. How we can specify any or all? If we specify any, which means any any value across that axis having null value, so that entire field along that would be dropped. For example, if we say axis 0 and how is any, then any value in that, if in that row is null, then the entire row would be dropped. Okay, so this, let me just check it up. Okay, instead of writing here with pd as the alias, we write it as data dot drop in. We don't pass the data frame, instead use the data as the attribute there. Okay, similarly, fill in a is used to fill the null values with a value specified as parameter. Okay, now we shall talk about very important method in pandas, especially when dealing with time series data. It is the date time and time delta. What date time does is it converts the attributes or values that we say, which is a kind of date time, into date time objects. Date time is a separate object in pandas. It helps you to fetch its date, its month, year, hour, minute, second, even millisecond, nanosecond. Time delta is the difference between two datetime objects. Okay, hope this is making sense. Now let us see. We are first creating a data frame. It contains date as one of its columns and sales as another column. The date contains string dates in a string format. Okay, we create this data frame. Next up, what we do is we call the method pd.toDateTime and we pass this date column here. If you see, we are fetching date time objects. Okay, date time 64 is a special d type in pandas. Okay, the first was 240892, so it automatically understood that 1992 is our year, 08 is the month, and 24 is the day. Okay, we can also pass a single string here and get it converted into a timestamp. Okay, if you pass a single string, we'll have a timestamp, and each of these are also timestamps, but the d type here would be date time. Now day first is used to specify whether the first value in my string passed is a date, day, or not. If we pass it as day, then it should mandatorily represent a day. Okay, however, if we pass any value, say for example, if I pass here 33 and say day first equal to true, we will get some error there. See, invalid date specified 33. 33 cannot be a date. We know the maximum date possible is 31. Even if we specify 31 and say the month is 02, we'll have an error. Day is out of range for month. So internally it does all computations and parses the exact date, month, time. Now if we want, let me just convert it to, wait, let's change it to 12 again. We'll have the values now. Okay, now I want to fetch the specific day, month, year from this timestamp object. We can do this very easily. We can also specify the time here. See, I specified the hour, minute, and second, which is also fetched and understood by the datetime object internally. Okay, now if we want to compute the difference between two dates, if we just have a mathematical difference, then things get a bit strange when it like kinds of month changes, year changes. So all the computations that you have to do, it's easier to use the time delta function of pandas than to convert the date first to days or minutes or hours and then have the subtraction or difference there. So what we do is we have a date time series here, okay, containing date time data as d type of date time. We call pd dot to time delta and subtract the two rows of it. You see, it is giving minus 3332 days. Okay, it does the internal computation. What was, let us print t here. So if I see my first row or 0th row here is 1992 and the first is 2000, and right, and we see that it is 8th month and 12th month, so it does all the computations and subtracts and gets like it is 3032 days ahead. Okay, hope this is making sense. This is very important when you're dealing with time series data. It is very simple to use, very flexible, allows a lot of advantages when computing date time, dealing with date time, setting date time as index. However, at the same time, this is very important from the perspective of interview questions as well. Okay, make sure you understand. We shall now talk about map, apply map and apply. I have already discussed about this and the link can be found in the I button above. Just to summarize, map is applied to series, whereas apply map is applied to data frames or multiple columns at the same time. Apply is applied to both series and data frames. What we do is map and apply map are element wise operations on a series or a data frame. How this works is, let us take a function which squares the values. Say for example, here we took the function here and called as func. If we take func4, it will return 16. Now we create a data frame with 3 columns A, B and C having values as this. You can see the data frame here. We are taking one column of the data frame. Remember, a column of a data frame is a series. So we map this series with this function. So what will happen is all the values would be squared. 2 will have 4, 3, 9, 4, 16. Apply map is applied to multiple columns or a data frame at the same time. Now we apply map to, let's say for example, we applied map to this data frame. So we see again the values are getting squared up for each element. So this is an element wise operation. Apply on the other hand is applied to the entire column at once. Say for example, if you apply sum, so what it will do is it will sum across the column or sum across the rows depending on the axis specified again. Okay. Another very important method to discuss about pandas is nlargest and nsmallest. Remember that if you want to sortlist, if you want to filter out certain rows based on the order of values or based on the relative positioning of values, say for example you want to pick up the third largest row or the row which is having the third largest value for the battery power. How are you going to do this? Or if you want to filter out the first 4 rows in ascending order of battery powers, or the first 4 or the topmost 4 companies which are having the highest revenue. So n largest and n smallest help you filter out k values depending on the ascending or descending order of respective columns. Here let us take n largest. We pass the value n as 3, which means we want to pick up 3 rows. However, if the total number of rows are less than 3, it will take the minimum of the count. Say if your data frame has only 2 rows, so it will return those 2 rows. Columns, we are sorting based on int memory and battery power. So first the data frame would be sorted based on int memory, then on top of it, it will sorted with battery power, and it will select the first 3 rows or the topmost 3 rows. And when we talk of n largest, it is sorted in descending order, while in n smallest the syntax remains the same, only the ordering is in ascending order. Now most of the functionalities that we talked of dealt with numeric values. Okay, now we will talk of some methods which deals with primarily categorical values or object type values. Value counts. Value counts help you identify the count of values corresponding to each category in a particular column. Say for example 4G. 4G had 2 categories, 1 and 0. So what is the count of 4G when the value is 1, which is 1043? What is the count of 4G when the value is 0? 957. Again, this comes very handy when we want to have some bar plots or we want to have the exploratory analysis with respect to the categorical values. Okay. Nunique. Nunique again gives us the number of unique values in a particular column. 4G has 2 unique values, so it returns 2. Data dot unique. Unique returns the unique values contained in that attribute. Here we had two unique values which are 0 and 1. Okay, hope this is making sense. Now we shall go ahead and understand some more methods corresponding to group by and where, and then don't forget to attempt the assignment question provided at the end of this tutorial of the second module. Okay. Group by, as the name suggests, is used to group by the data frame based on certain categories or certain values of a particular column. Let us see some examples. We'll take again those four columns: battery power. Why we are taking these four columns? Because to keep the thing simple. Otherwise, understanding the functionalities on all 21 columns would be a bit difficult. Okay. So we take here a limited subset of the functionality. You can take any other columns as well. There is no restriction. Okay. Now what we will do is we will group by based on certain columns. So what we want to group by? Remember, group by primarily works with categorical data. You can group based on a certain category of data, right? You can also group based on values, but then if you try to do it on numeric values, there would be enormous number of groups. You understand the basic underlying principle there. Now let us group based on the 4G. Okay, and what we'll do, we will describe the data frame or describe the values based on the grouping. Okay, so what we see for 4G equal to 0, the battery power count is 957, mean is 1231. When 4G was 1, the mean of battery power is 1245 nearly. Similarly, the standard deviation. This is primarily used to compare between the different categories of any attribute or column. Okay, when you want to compare whether, say for example, the predicted values, you have two outcomes for prediction, 0 and 1. You want to compare how the different columns behave with respect to when the prediction value is 1 versus when prediction value is 0. There are some more functionalities with respect to group by and aggregation. We'll study about aggregation in our third module, but now you are understanding what group by does and how it works. Okay, so it is used to group by based on certain categories of a column. Next, where does is it filters values or it conditions value based on a certain column in a data frame. Let us see. We'll take the example of, say, again a few of the subset columns: 3G, int, memory, and we say the function where we specify a condition where data int memory equal to so 32. Okay, let us see what happens. If we see there, we don't find any 32 as values. Is it so? Let us check. Data int memory so what are the unique values here? So we have, let's say we take the value 53. If the condition is not met, it returns null by default. We can also specify something else as other not found. Okay, let us see what it gives. See, wherever the value was not there, it returns not found. Okay, hope you are understanding this. Now next up, very importantly, you must attempt the interview questions which we are going to present right now. Hope you watched the module 1 and attempted the interview questions there as well. If not, do go and attempt the interview questions. It will help you prepare for the interviews well. Okay. Now let us begin with our assignment questions. The first assignment question is, write a function to return the current date using pandas and the next leap year. So you have to write a function. The function will use the pandas functionality to return the current date, whatever the current date is, along with which is going to be the next leap year. This is the first question, first assignment question. The second assignment question is, you have to write another function which is going to return the top 3 rows having the largest int memory when 4G is 1. and when 4G is 0. So separately, I will attach this data set as well in the description. Do check that out. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, like, share it with the friends and data enthusiasts. See you in the next lecture. Have a nice day. Bye bye.